had a couple of my colonels up here. I didn't invite them; they had to come. I told them they had to be here. And because they are the vice provost for academic affairs and learning systems, and I asked them to kind of think about the so what and what's next, and how are we going to continue to collaborate when this is over, and what's next. So I'm going to let them talk about that a little bit, and then I'll do a little wrap up at the end. And just for those who aren't in the military, you wonder why we have so many strange uniforms and we're wearing something different. This is our old uniform. That's our new uniform. But in the interest of saving money and not being a pain and everything else, we have about a 4-year wear-in period. So you can kind of wear what you want for 3 or 4 years. And that really kind of drives Command Sergeant Majors crazy because they like everybody the same. But I'll leave it there. So let me, why don't I start off with the Vice Provost for Academic Affairs. So.
Thanks, sir. Steve Delvo, Vice Provost for Academic Affairs. And I want to kind of drill down on some of the points that General Kim raised in the last session in terms of the collaboration, the degree programs, really the so what for you all, what we're looking for, what we're hoping to be able to leverage and gain through our partnership with your academic institutions. And as we get down to the meat of it, in terms of what Army University is and what it is we're seeking to accomplish and achieve, it's really, we're chasing the same pot of gold that your institutions are chasing. We're reaching for that same brass ring. And that's the development of the critical thinking skills, those higher level cognitive skills. And we're taking a two-prong approach on that. And the first is internal. So there's an internal piece to that, and I'll defer to Colonel Len Lear. He'll talk about that. And that really deals with the Army classrooms, our faculty, our curriculum, and our innovation. You know, delivering the best, rigorous, relevant curriculum in the most innovative manner, using by world-class faculty. And the good news of our approach is that the science of learning, the studies that have been done are pretty solid, and they're pretty consistent across the board in terms of how you go about developing those critical thinking skills. Of course, the bad news is that it's been out there for 40, 50 years, and we're still struggling with it the same as a lot of your institutions are. So Colonel Len Lear will talk about that piece. The piece I want to address to you is the external piece. And as we looked at our approach to developing critical thinking skills, our thoughts are, Western civilization really has said that the way you do that for the last hundreds of years is through a broad-based liberal arts education. And that's what you all do. And we have the best university system in the world. So as General Kim mentioned several times, we'd be fools not to take advantage of that subject matter expertise of how you do it. And we don't have the resources necessary to try to recreate it on our own. And so we're not going to try. And our approach to this is kind of, we're going to seek to leverage your resources in providing that broad-based liberal arts education with our Army school system, so that at the end of the day, we're incentivizing, encouraging our soldiers to reach out to your academic institution and to take those humanities classes, those general education classes, which you will then, in turn, hopefully recognize their Army education that they've gotten through the Army school system and their operational experience that they've got in the assignments that they've had over the course of their career. So, how this would look, in several of you are already doing it. And we use one example of East Carolina University, how they partner with the Army to provide, fill in a gap that we have in our career program 32. But there's several other initiatives out there. Dr. Sue Mays, I don't know if she's still here, started up the Great Plains Initiative, where there's a consortium of colleges that all accept each other's courses, all have the same fees, and all have established these degree programs. So a person could take a course from the University of Nebraska, one from Kansas State, and one from the other schools and colleges that participate in these consortiums, and then at the end get the degree. And so we're kind of thinking along the same lines for within Army University, how we establish these degree programs. And a lot of it is focused on our NCO, our enlisted cohort, because we think that's where the biggest bang for the buck is. As Sergeant Major Clauser pointed out, that's 80% of the force, and that's the underserved population. When we talk to our voluntary education folks, they'll point out to you a couple of pretty stark facts. One is that in 2012, through tuition assistance, the Army spent $357 million on tuition assistance. In 2015, I'm sorry, it was $357 million in 2012. It was $237 million last year. So there's $120 million out there on the table. Only 13% of the TA eligible population is actually utilizing tuition assistance. So there's a lot of money out there. We have these programs. We have the GI Bill. We have tuition assistance where they can reach out and take advantage of those courses that you're offering either on base at your local colleges or through distance learning that we would like to leverage. And so we like to set up these degree programs, again, where you recognize their Army schools and their experience, and then they take your courses to fill in the gaps of what they're missing on that, and at the end of the day, get that broad-based liberal arts education. We think that makes a better force. You know, it's all tied to readiness. It's all tied to our ability to fight, win, and survive on the current and the future battlefields. And so that's the collaboration we're looking for. We talked about the ACE recommendations, where there's a lot of good work out there. We've talked with the Texas Workforce Commission, but they're working to try to articulate better the recommendations that ACE makes to their curriculum within their University of Texas system. Kansas Board of Regents is doing similar work, and a lot of other MHEC, the regional collaborations, MICMIC, they're doing similar type work. So we're trying to, kind of solidify these, make it better, so it makes it easier for you to interpret what we do, and establish these links and these partnerships and these relationships, so that at the end of the day, our soldiers are developing those critical thinking skills that we think are absolutely essential. And so now the final thing is...
If I could just jump in on one comment there. You talked about the broad-based liberal education, that part. The reason that's a focus area for him and his group is because it's that leadership, management, project management, communication skills, critical thinking that drives our mid-career and makes them so much better. He didn't mention the proponency part and the scientific and the more technical, because those also are, but the proponents already do a lot of that, and we want to make it even easier and better than that. But that's not the biggest gap for the Army writ large.
Sure. And then just to wrap it up here, again, working with the tough thing for us is that we're marrying up voluntary education, which is currently under Human Resources Command, with our professional military education schools. So we're collaborating within the Army based off our command and control structures. But we're establishing good relationships and partnerships, and then that will help facilitate your entry point as you establish these degree programs. And as General Kim has pointed out, our first order is do no harm. So all those existing partnerships and programs that you already have, we're just seeking to expand those. And really, one of the populations, we talked about the NCO enlisted, especially on our combat arms sides. A lot of the engineer, the logistics, the technical skills, those easily translate, and you understand those. But you don't necessarily understand what an infantryman does, or what an armor or a tanker does, a field artilleryman. It doesn't translate as easy into civilian skills. So we're trying to really focus on that population, because that's a big piece of our Army. And if you think about it, it's an underserved, because if you look at an infantryman, for example, that infantryman, by the time they get to 10 to 12 years of service, they've been through several Army schools, including what is now the Basic Leader Course, the Advanced Leader Course, the Senior Leader Course, and they've probably spent 5 to 6 years in leadership positions, leading teams of 4 to 5 men as a team leader, 8 to 9 men as a squad leader, 30 to 35 men as a platoon sergeant. Are you recognizing that leadership experience, that management, those skills that they have, giving them credit for prior learning? So that's what we're looking at when we're developing these degree programs with you all, is to make sure that we're giving proper credit for that. The same way that you do with someone who comes in, a manager from GE or corporate America, who brings with them those same leadership experiences and management skills, and you're giving them credit for that prior learning. So those are the things. Now, here's my pitch to you. Here's what we really need. As a nascent organization who will not be fully operational capable for 2 more years, we have some big holes. And one of the big ones we have, the Center for Teaching, Learning, and Excellence that Len leads is filling out pretty nicely. So they're moving forward and they're working on the internal piece. On the external piece, I get a lot of emails. A lot of you are very, very eager and willing to help us, and I don't have anybody. I don't have a staff really to handle those, to process them. So we ask you for patience first and foremost, but secondly, what we're looking for is there's a process in the Army. It's called the Intergovernmental Personnel Act. And it allows us to bring in folks, and we negotiate the contract with you for 4, 6, 12 months, whatever, to help us out with a specific problem. And that is one area we could really use, whether it's a faculty you put on sabbatical, somebody from your administration that you're willing to put on a leave of absence or to allow them to come out and work with us. Somebody that could really jump on as soon as possible and help us get these things established. Anybody who has, I've already put out some feelers to a few contacts that I've made over the past couple months, but anybody who has, anybody who thinks that could help us out in those arenas, we'd be very, very eager to hear from you. And the second piece is the registrar. So one of the things we're trying to work, some of you are aware that we have the Joint Service Transcript that records all the experiences, all the jobs and the schooling that you had in the Army. And one thing we're not doing right now is not capturing your academic credits. So those courses that you take through the Education Center isn't recorded on the Joint Service Transcript. We're probably going to look to add this as the Navy and Marine Corps already does in the interim. And then in the future, we may look to establish our own transcript and then establish a registrar system for how do we record, make sure that we adequately capture those academic experiences that a soldier has in the Army. So again, when they show up at your doorstep with your registrar, that your registrar can easily translate what they've done into university speak. So those are the two areas that we're really looking for. Degree programs, register some folks who can help us sort through these things and make sense of it and help us establish good programs and processes for helping our soldiers develop those critical thinking skills. Sir.
I would just add on to the Vice Provost for Academic Affairs as an element of the Vice Provost for Academic Affairs. The symposium was good for my center, particularly when we're looking at how do we develop world-class faculty. What we want to do is go beyond the bumper sticker of that. And like Steve said, we're focused internally, but we did invite intentionally both research institutions and teaching institutions so that we could learn from your best practices or engage with you, or at least let you know that we as an entity exist and would like to collaborate with you so that we can internally make our faculty, which includes both the instructors that get up on the platform and the staff that develop the curriculum, better, and that we can actually put meat behind what do we mean by world-class faculty. And that gets to the curriculum development that my other division works on. When we say we want to professionalize curriculum development, we're looking to the industry, to the market, or to the environment, which is the academic institutions that we invited, which was just about everybody, on how do you do curriculum development. And we want to make sure that as the non-commissioned officer, like the gentleman that spoke this morning, the courses that they go through at Fort Knox, Fort Leonard Wood, that is easily transferable or translated into something that your institution would recognize. Now, that's not our primary goal. That's a secondary goal. Our primary goal is to make sure that they are still getting the best education that we can provide them in the PME institution. But we think that we can accommodate both goals by doing that. And then my third final comment is that we're trying to provide the innovation for Army University as well. I have a division of one who's leading the way on trying to help connect the dots that Colonel DeVella was talking about. And I know that we've reached out to several of your institutions, Centers for Teaching Excellence, or the equivalent of. I've been in contact with the University of Kansas. We're going to be contacting the University of Texas. We are looking for innovative ways of how you bring adult learning education into the classroom. And hopefully you understand what our constraints are and our requirements are better. And if you don't, then we are a point of contact for you to engage with and learn that. So you can ask the question, and we can really get to what are we trying to accomplish.
If I could just jump in and add on that part. So they mentioned one or two places, one or two universities, because that's they recently were talking to in the last week or two or three or whatever. It includes trade schools, community colleges, as I said, we're all the way up through war colleges and strategic education. Because the Army is a cross-section of America. We have a cross-section of needs. When you're civilian uniform, that's why it is a breadth of different types of colleges, universities, and schools. There's nobody who's in or out. It's about getting what's the right group to do the right group of us to help us out. And let me now let Colonel Harlan come in, and Michael's going to talk to you about the learning system side.
Okay, I'm Michael Harlan. I'm the Vice Provost for Learning Systems. What we do, some of the questions are going out. It was exciting to hear the conversation because that's exactly what we're looking for, what we're getting into, and that's that partnering. That's how do we tie together. Before I go too far into this, I'd like to point out this quad fold piece of paper. Forgive me. That is here. We place a stack of these out when you go out the door to the left. They're out there. Has a little bit of information about what Army University are endeavoring to do, what we're looking at, goals, vision, all that. But very importantly, also on the bottom of the back page is the address to our mailbox. And for your convenience, we've also posted it on the, if you look at the screens to the front, across the bottom, there's a, if those are still on, I can't see them from where I'm sitting. But across the bottom in yellow there, that is our address to our mailbox. And that is a monitored mailbox, so if you send in a question or an idea or something in that order, we do have someone that's tracking those. Again, I will echo what my comrade said, which is patience. But we do have someone that is what they're doing. They're looking at that, they're logging those and making sure we close those loops, because what we're trying to do is very, very important, and we absolutely need your assistance on a lot of different things, and we want to hear your ideas also, and we think this is a good way to get that started. Part of what the Army, the Vice Provost for Learning Systems is going to do is we're going to establish collaborative networks and some of the other things that have been kind of discussed in here about how do we connect people that are studying certain things, what work has been done, what's currently going on. And of course there's always legalities and these sorts of things that get in there. But part of what Army University is also trying to do is a thing we're working on here in the Army called institutional agility. That it's taken forever to get a lot of things done, there's a lot of bureaucracy. But the problem is reality moves much faster than the bureaucracy does, and so we're trying to find a way to speed things up so that we do things right, but at the same time we do it so that the solutions that are being developed are relevant to what the current challenges are, or in the best case, we anticipate what the challenges will be. And that's where we need part of your help. We're also reaching out to our own force on that. I was with my son. We did a college visit. I won't name any specific college, but it is here in state. But we did a senior visit, and we were walking, and there's a couple of graduate students behind my wife and I as we were walking. My wife is she's a mathematician, math teacher type. And we're walking, and they were just fired up about this electrical engineering project that they're doing. And I finished this, and I'm on the verge of a breakthrough, and Dr. So-and-so, and they were just absolutely excited about what's going on. I just chuckled, and I leaned over to my wife. I said, that's what we're trying to tap into with Army University. The next big idea is going to come from either the faculty that you have or your students, and Army University is a way that we can hopefully get that on board faster, because the solutions are going to come from your students, from your faculty. The same corporations we'll go to years down the road, those are the students that have those same ideas that have them now. So we're trying to find a way, can we somehow collaborate more, get those ideas in here, float some of those ideas. Talking to a lawyer, she kind of slapped my hand and said, well, this is going to result in a bunch of unsolicited ideas. I said, well, that's kind of what we're trying to do. So that's really what we're looking at, is trying to get away from that. And yes, we do have rules, we have regulations, and we're not going to ignore those. We can't ignore those. But certain things can be changed if we can find workarounds to try to solve the solution, or find solutions to the problems we have now and the ones we have in the future. That's kind of what we do, and that's partly what Vice Provost for Learning Systems does, is try to establish those connective tissues and work through some of those things. So we've heard a lot of great ideas here about research that's being done, possibly sharing of data, a lot of different things going on. There's potential that your students, that your faculty may get information from us that would benefit us in the long run. Likewise, things that we can do working with your organizations, that when our soldiers and civilians come back from your organizations, they're better, and again, we benefit from that. And that's what we're trying to work through there. Army University, we mentioned this a couple times, it's not intended, nor do we propose a universal degree system that everyone coming out, it's going to change fundamentally how we interact with civilian organizations and those the funds in those relationships. And so this is just to strengthen that, find a way to work better together, in no way replace things that are going on right now. Heard some great ideas as we're talking through about credit for experience and some different measures of human performance and how do we look at what's next for the threats from, if that's science, if that is political, if that's military, et cetera. I know we talk a lot about the next fight, the next mission, all that stuff. I started off as a combat arms guy, but now I'm a sustainer. And so what that means is I do logistics. And a lot of what we do is humanitarian assistance, disaster relief. So we need help from you on those things also, because you have experts in country studies, you have experts in certain diseases and a lot of other things that will really help us to make a difference in the world. And that's what the United States has always done. And we're kind of at the forefront of that many times, going out there and helping in the interagency and working shoulder to shoulder with them. So going forward in the future, as I said, if you have ideas and things, again, please, I encourage you. The web address that's down here is probably take some time to process some different things. We may have working groups coming up in the future, et cetera. Some of those things may be proposed. There may be specific areas that we focus in on that are very specific that will not include necessarily everybody that's here today. But then I anticipate we will also have additional work groups that work on something very specific to the other individuals' interests. So as we go forward, please send us your ideas, send us your thoughts. Probably need some time to process things, and we'll be getting back with you on where we can go next with the next steps. So John, do you have anything? This is John Rogers, who is my deputy, does all the actual heavy lifting. Not only a handsome and powerful man, but also much smarter than I am. So.
Well, I can tell you for certain that that's not true. I think that Colonel Harlan covered the Vice Provost for Learning Systems part of this very well. I would like to add just one contextualizing statement. We've done an awful lot of talking about synchronization, collaboration, coordination, but one word that I haven't heard mentioned is synergy. We've talked an awful lot about what we need from you folks. You folks have offered a little bit of what we could offer you. But what we haven't really talked about is the increase of effect on both sides. I don't think we're talking about a zero-sum game here. I think that Army University, in its effort to create more agile and adaptive leaders, which will in turn create a greater institution for us is the Army, mirrors what you do on the other side. Only your institution is the world at large. And I think that together, although we are sharing some of the same tools and some of the same efforts, if we're building a house, we're really not in competition with each other any more than a plumber is in competition with a carpenter. We bring different skills and different views to the table, and I think together we can make both sides that much stronger.
Let me make a few closing comments, and I'll open up to anybody in the audience who has any last-minute comments. Thanks to all you all for you all being up here with me. The real question is the takeaways from this. Now, I have like 5 pages of notes. I'm sure you have things you liked and didn't like. What are we going to do with it all? Well, in the near term, we all have to have, adult learning got to go reflect a little bit. It's going to take a couple of days, maybe a beer or two to reflect on what we've just done. But then what we are going to do by Christmas or shortly thereafter or right before is to try to take kind of a bit of an abstract kind of way. Here are some takeaways from the different panels and writ large, and here are some questions that remain or issues that are out there. And then in a academic kind of way, in a call for papers, call for ideas kind of way, post that on the web. We'll obviously let you all know as it's all out there since you're part of the team, and say, okay, what are your thoughts, and allow you all to jump back on and comment on that, or to go express interest in tackling some of that. And that was what Colonel Harlan was talking about. And then find some forums next year, whether both digital or in person, not necessarily here, it could be someplace else, in smaller groups, bigger groups, try to now tackle some of those things where you can go into farther weeds and actually really try to get something practical, implementable in some of those arenas. And so that's our aim to do in the coming month or so. And then also consider, is there an appropriate time next year to do a wider one like this with particularly some of the same topics, some different ones, same location, someplace different, or whatever, and try to build on what we've done, because we don't want to just walk away. So that's kind of the way forward. I thought John Rogers did a very nice job of talking about the purpose in a nice way. I hope you got a takeaway from this that the Army is an innovative place. We do a lot of things really well, but like even when we do things really well, you always think I do it. But when I was in a company commander, I thought I was the best company commander. Better than the ones next to me. And then every now and then you see me go, my names actually are pretty good over there. And all of our universities benefit from that. You come to these things and you hear things and you go, wow, that place is pretty good at this too. And so that's the real value of this. So I really do want to thank you for coming. The last part is the one thing we really bring at Army University is undivided attention on these challenges. So the Army's had challenges with credentialing. We had people working credentialing for a long time. And academic governance and all those things. What's different now is, in some ways, is it's undivided attention. We don't have other secondary jobs and other things we're supposed to do. So that should help over time really cement things. Because if you don't have undivided attention, you can't really ever get certain things solved. I'll give you a great example. My last job, I was in the Corps of Engineers, and we were struggling with some problem, and I was going, why can't we do it this way? And they said, sir, that violates the Flood Control Act of 1944. And I'm like, wow. And I'm going, and that's in law, and it's a good law, but there's challenges with it, and this is a lot of years later, and I don't know if in the Army Corps, if we ever went back to Congress and says, can you please change this one part? I don't know if we might have done it, and Congress said no. We're a nation of laws, but at least we have somebody who's going to ask those questions now and try to beat her head against the wall, and we will be successful sometimes and unsuccessful other times, but it won't be for lack of trying. So that's our commitment to you. And let me now open up for any comments from the audience before we close it down. If not, let me just say thank you very much for coming and safe travels, and hope you have a great holiday and a great 2016. Thank you.